The massive alien ship appeared at the edge of Earth's solar system, like a dark mountain floating in space. It was bigger than any human-made structure, with sharp edges and glowing lights that pulsed like a heartbeat. Inside the ship's command center, Admiral Vextar stood tall on his 6 crystal legs. His body looked like living glass, and his voice sounded like rocks grinding together. "Show me their file again," Vextar ordered his officers. The holographic display showed Earth spinning slowly in space. Red text appeared next to it, listing what the Galactic Council knew about humans. No faster than light travel. No energy shields. Still using old chemical rockets. The report called Earth a primitive backwater world with limited strategic value. Vextar made a sound that might have been laughter. "These mammals barely know how to leave their own atmosphere. This will be easy." On Earth's orbital station called New Sol, Captain Dongmin was drinking his morning coffee when the alarm started screaming. He was a short man with graying hair and calm eyes that had seen many crises. He set down his cup and walked quickly to the command center. "What do we have?" he asked. Specialist Hye-jin looked up from her console. She was young, maybe 25, with quick fingers that never stopped moving across her keyboard. "Captain, we have a massive energy signature at the edge of the solar system." "It's huge, sir. Bigger than anything we've ever detected." Dongmin felt his heart speed up, but his voice stayed steady. "Put it on the main screen." The alien ship appeared on the display and everyone in the command center went quiet. It looked like a predator made of metal and lights. "Waiting to strike, sir," Hye-jin said, her voice shaking slightly. "We're receiving a transmission." "Put it through." The screen flickered, and suddenly they were looking at Admiral Vextar. His crystal face had no expression humans could read, but his voice carried the weight of someone used to being obeyed. "Primitive species of Sol 3, the alien said. "You will submit to Galactic Council authority. Your world has been chosen for resource extraction. Fighting back would be foolish and dangerous for your kind." Dongmin stepped forward. "This is Captain Dongmin of the Earth Defense Force. We welcome contact with your people, but we need time to discuss your proposal with our governments." Vextar's head tilted in what might have been confusion. "Discuss? There is nothing to discuss. You will surrender your world or we will take it. Those are your only choices." Dr. Bora entered the command center just as the alien finished speaking. She was Earth's top expert on alien contact protocols. A woman in her 40s with sharp intelligence and a calm manner. She had been preparing for this moment her entire career, but seeing it happen still made her hands shake. "Captain," she whispered, "let me handle the communication protocols." Dongmin nodded and stepped back. Bora moved to the communication station. "Honored representative of the Galactic Council," she began, using the most polite tone she could manage. "We are grateful for this contact. However, our species has complex governmental structures. We need time to consult with our leaders before making such an important decision." On the alien ship, Ambassador Krelnor turned to Admiral Vextar. Krelnor looked like a giant insect with too many arms and eyes that glowed red in the dark. "Admiral, they speak like children trying to delay bedtime," Krelnor said in their own language. "Perhaps we should simply begin the extraction and save time." Vextar considered this. "No. The Council prefers willing cooperation when possible. It makes the work easier." He turned back to the communication channel. "Dr. Bora of Earth," Vextar said, somehow knowing her name though she hadn't given it. "You have 72 of your planet's hours to make your decision. Our terms are generous. Your species may continue to live on your world as workers. You will help us extract your planet's resources. In return, we will not destroy your cities." Bora felt cold fear run down her spine, but she kept her voice steady. "And if we refuse? Then you will learn why 12,000 species across the galaxy have chosen to cooperate with the Council rather than resist." The transmission ended, leaving the human command center in silence. Dongmin walked to the window that looked out at Earth, blue and beautiful and suddenly very fragile. "Hye-jin," he said quietly, "send a priority message to Admiral Taeho on Earth. Tell him we have first contact, and it's not friendly." "Yes, sir." Dr. Bora sat down heavily in a chair. 72 hours, she said. "They're giving us 3 days to surrender our entire world. What do you think they're capable of?" Dongmin asked. Bora looked at the data they had gathered from the alien ship's brief appearance. "Their technology is clearly advanced. That ship alone could probably destroy our orbital installations without much trouble. And they mentioned 12,000 other species that cooperated. cooperated, or were conquered? I think we both know the answer to that. On the alien ship, Admiral Vextar was already making plans. He called up star maps showing Earth's solar system and began marking locations for mining operations and human work camps. How long do you estimate the extraction will take? He asked his chief engineer. 18 months for the primary resources, Admiral. Perhaps another year for the secondary materials. And the human population? We can keep about 10% for labor. The rest will be unnecessary. Vextar nodded as if they were discussing the weather. Prepare the extraction fleets. I want them ready to begin work the moment these mammals surrender. Back on the orbital station, Captain Dongmin stood in the communication center, looking at the spot where the alien admiral had appeared. His mind was racing with possibilities, none of them good. Captain, Hyejin said, Admiral Tae-ho is requesting an immediate video conference. Put him through. Admiral Tae-ho appeared on the screen. He was an older man with silver hair and eyes that missed nothing. He had spent 40 years in Earth's military, and Dongmin had never seen him look worried. He looked worried now. Captain, Tae-ho said, give me your assessment. Sir, they have technology far beyond ours. They're treating this like a business transaction, not a war. They expect us to surrender because they assume we can't fight back. And can we? Dongmin looked around the command center. Hyejin was monitoring alien communications. Dr. Bora was reviewing contact protocols. Through the window, Earth looked peaceful and unaware of the threat hanging over it. With what they can see of our capabilities? Dongmin said carefully. No, sir. We can't, Admiral Tae-ho nodded slowly. Understood. Continue diplomatic contact. Try to learn as much as possible about their capabilities and intentions. And, Captain? Yes, sir? Remember that appearances can be deceiving. What someone sees is not always what exists. The communication ended, leaving Dongmin to wonder what the Admiral meant. Outside, the alien ship waited like a sword hanging over Earth's head, counting down the hours until humanity's deadline arrived. 3 alien scout ships moved through Earth's solar system like hunting wolves. They scanned everything they could see, taking pictures and measuring energy signatures. The ships were small but fast, with sensors that could detect a coin from 1,000,000 miles away. On the lead scout ship, Intelligence Officer Thane studied the data flowing across his screens. Thane looked like a walking tree with bark for skin and leaves that changed color with his emotions. Right now, his leaves were a calm green because everything was going exactly as expected. Report, came Admiral Vextar's voice through the communication system. As predicted, Admiral, Thane replied. These humans have barely achieved basic spaceflight. Their largest ships are converted cargo vessels with simple fusion engines. Their orbital stations are basic metal structures with no defensive capabilities. Thane's leaves rustled with satisfaction. They have some asteroid mining operations, but the equipment is primitive. Their warships appear to be transport vehicles with small weapons attached. I count maybe 50 ships total in their entire system, and none of them pose any threat. Excellent, Vextar said. Continue your survey. I want to know the location of every human asset before we begin operations. Far below the Pacific Ocean, in a construction facility buried 3 miles beneath the seafloor, Commander Jinwoo watched the alien scouts through sensors they could never detect. Jinwoo was a tall man with steady hands and eyes that never missed details. He had been preparing for this day for 15 years. They're taking the bait perfectly, he said to his second-in-command. Lieutenant So Young was younger, maybe 30, with the quick movements of someone who had grown up in zero gravity. She smiled as she watched the alien ships scan their carefully placed decoy vessels. The fake mining ships are reading exactly as designed, she reported. Primitive fusion signatures, basic metal construction, no advanced technology detected. Commander Jinwoo nodded and turned to look through the facility's thick windows. Stretching out before him was humanity's real fleet. Ships that made the alien dreadnoughts look small floated in massive underwater bays. Their hulls were made of materials that didn't exist in any Council database. Their engines used principles that Council science said were impossible. How many ships are ready? Jinwoo asked. Engineer Yu-jin looked up from her control station. She was a small woman with oil-stained fingers and the intense focus of someone who built impossible things for a living. 67 heavy cruisers, 230 destroyers, 15 dreadnoughts, and the flagship, she reported. All ships are fully armed and their stealth systems are online. Jinwoo walked to another window where fighters hung in launch bays like sleeping birds of prey. Captain Wu Bin was running final checks on his squadron. Wubin had been Earth's best pilot before the secret fleet recruited him. Now he commanded fighters that could dance between raindrops and strike like lightning. Go squadron status? Jin Wu asked into his communicator. All birds ready to fly, Commander. Wubin's voice came back. The aliens won't know what hit them. Meanwhile, on the orbital station New Seoul, Dr. Bo-Ra was playing her part perfectly. She sat across from Captain Dong-min in what looked like a crisis meeting. In reality, they were both following a script they had practiced hundreds of times. Captain, our governments are having trouble reaching an agreement, Bo-Ra said, making sure her voice sounded worried. Some nations want to negotiate, others want to fight, and many are just panicking. Dong-min nodded, looking appropriately concerned. Can you buy us more time with the aliens? I'll try, but they don't seem like patient beings. Their conversation was being monitored by the alien scouts exactly as planned. For the past 20 years, Earth's governments had been working together in secret. There were no disagreements, no panic, and no confusion. There was only the plan. The plan had started when Earth's deep space listening posts detected alien signals from across the galaxy. Dr. Bo-Ra herself had been part of the team that decoded those first messages. They learned about the Galactic Council, their methods, and their history of conquering primitive worlds. Humanity had faced a choice. They could hide and hope the aliens never found them, or they could prepare. They chose to prepare. Dr. Bo-Ra requested another communication with the alien fleet. Admiral Vextar's crystal face appeared on the screen, and she could see his impatience in the way his lights pulsed faster. Admiral, she began, our leaders are working hard to reach a decision, but our governmental systems are complex. Could you help us understand exactly what cooperation with the Council would involve? Vextar's lights flashed brighter. Your species would provide labor for resource extraction. You would be relocated to designated areas. Your reproduction would be managed to maintain optimal population levels. Your education would be limited to skills necessary for your assigned tasks. Dr. Bo-Ra managed to look thoughtful rather than horrified. And our current cities? Those not useful for operations would be dismantled. The materials would be recycled for council projects. I see. And our cultural sites? Art? History? Irrelevant, Vextar said dismissively. Such concerns are luxuries for civilized species. Your function would be labor, not culture. Dr. Bo-Ra nodded as if seriously considering this. We appreciate your patience, Admiral. May I ask about your enforcement capabilities? Some of our leaders are concerned about resistance movements. This was the question she really wanted answered. Vextar's lights pulsed with what might have been pride. Resistance is futile, he said. Our 12 dreadnoughts carry planet-killing weapons. Each ship can destroy a continent. Our shields can stop any primitive weapon your species might possess. Our sensors can detect any gathering of more than 50 humans from orbit. Thank you for the clarification, Dr. Bo-Ra said. That information will help our leaders make an informed decision. After the communication ended, Dr. Bo-Ra allowed herself a small smile. The aliens had just revealed their exact capabilities, their tactics, and their blind spots. Everything they said was being recorded and analyzed by Earth's military planners. In the underwater facility, Commander Jin Wu received the intelligence report. He shared it with his senior staff, and they began making final adjustments to their battle plans. Their sensors work on conventional principles. Engineer Yu Jin reported, our stealth technology makes our ships invisible to their detection methods. They won't see us coming. Their shields are designed to stop energy weapons and kinetic projectiles, added Weapons Officer Minho, but they're not designed to stop our quantum disruptors or gravitic weapons. Commander Jin Wu looked at the tactical display showing the alien fleet's positions. 12 ships against humanity's true fleet. It would be a massacre, but not the one the aliens expected. Begin Operation Sunrise preparation, he ordered. All ships to silent running. Wait for the Admiral's signal. Back on the orbital station, Captain Dongmin received a coded message from Earth. It was simple. The garden is ready for planting. He looked out at Earth, blue and beautiful and apparently helpless. The alien scouts continued their surveys, cataloging what they thought were humanity's pathetic defenses. They had no idea they were being watched by sensors they couldn't detect, from ships they couldn't see, by a species that had spent decades preparing for this exact moment. The 72-hour deadline was approaching. Soon the aliens would learn that sometimes the rabbit has teeth. On the alien flagship, Admiral Vextar reviewed the scout reports one final time. Everything confirmed their initial assessment. Humanity was weak, primitive, and defenseless. This would be another easy conquest for the Council. Begin final preparations, he ordered. In 18 hours we will demonstrate why resistance to the Council is pointless. His officers moved to carry out his orders, none of them noticing the tiny quantum fluctuations that meant human sensors were watching their every move. The trap was set. Now all that remained was to spring it. The 72 hours ended at exactly noon Earth time. Captain Dongmin stood in the command center of Orbital Station New Seoul, looking at the countdown timer that had reached 0. Around him his crew waited in silence. Everyone knew this moment would change everything. Open a channel to the alien fleet, Dongmin ordered. Specialist Hyejin's fingers moved across her controls. Channel open, Captain. Admiral Vextar's crystal face appeared on the main screen. His lights pulsed with impatience and barely controlled anger. Behind him, other alien officers moved between control stations, preparing their weapons. Captain Dongmin, Vextar said, his voice like grinding stone. Your time has expired. What is humanity's decision? Dongmin stepped forward, his uniform neat and his expression calm. He had practiced this moment in his mind 1,000 times, but his heart still pounded like a drum. Admiral Vexitar, he began, his voice steady and clear. We have carefully considered the Galactic Council's offer. We appreciate the time you have given us to make this decision. Vextar's lights pulsed faster. And? We must respectfully decline, Dongmin said. Earth will remain free. The silence that followed was complete. On the alien flagship, officers turned to stare at their screens as if they couldn't believe what they had heard. Ambassador Krelnor's many eyes blinked in sequence, and his insect-like face twisted with confusion. Did they just... Krelnor began. They refused, Vextar said, his voice rising to a roar that made his crystal body ring like a bell. These primitives actually refused. Vextar turned back to the communication channel, his lights now flashing red with rage. Captain Dongmin, you have made a fatal error. You will now watch your world burn as a lesson to other species who might consider defying the Council. I don't think so, Dongmin replied calmly. Vextar's lights flickered with confusion. You don't think so? You have seen our ships. You know our power. What could possibly make you believe you can resist us? Instead of answering, Dongmin smiled. It was a small smile, but somehow it made every alien officer feel suddenly nervous. Admiral Taeho, Dongmin said to someone off-screen, I believe it's time for Operation Sunrise on Earth. In a command bunker buried deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, Admiral Taeho sat at a massive control station, surrounded by screens showing every part of Earth's solar system. He was a man who had spent his entire life preparing for war, and now that war had finally come. All units, Taeho said into his communicator, execute Operation Sunrise. Show them what Earth can do. Across the solar system, space itself seemed to come alive. What had appeared to be empty vacuum suddenly filled with massive ships that materialized like ghosts becoming solid. The human fleet decloaked all at once, revealing vessels that dwarfed the alien dreadnoughts. On the alien flagship, Tactical Officer Mordex stared at his sensors in complete shock. His readings showed impossible things. Where moments before there had been nothing, now dozens of human ships hung in space like sleeping giants awakening. Admiral, Mordex shouted, his voice breaking with panic. Sir, I'm reading massive energy signatures throughout the system. Ships, everywhere. How is this possible? Admiral Vextar rushed to the tactical display, his crystal legs clicking rapidly on the metal floor. The holographic map of the solar system now showed 67 human ships, each one larger and more advanced than anything in the Council fleet. Where did they come from? Vextar demanded. Our sensors showed nothing. Before Mordex could answer, a new voice cut across all communication channels. It was calm, professional, and absolutely confident. Council fleet, this is Commander Jin Woo of the Earth Defense Force ship Indomitable. You are trespassing in sovereign human space. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences. The Indomitable hung in space like a metal mountain. It was 3 times the size of Vextar's flagship, with weapons that glowed with power the aliens couldn't identify. Its hull was made of materials that didn't appear in any Council database. Admiral Vexitar felt something he hadn't experienced in centuries. Fear. But his pride was stronger than his fear, and the idea of retreating from primitives was impossible to accept. Human ship, Vextar replied. You may have hidden ships, but you still face the might of the Galactic Council. Our weapons can destroy planets. Our shields have never been breached. Surrender now, and we will make your deaths quick. Commander Jinwoo's voice came back, and there was something like amusement in it. Admiral, your sensors are clearly malfunctioning. You said you had 12 ships? I only count 11. Vextar looked at his tactical display in confusion. 12 ships showed as active, but as he watched, one of the dreadnoughts simply vanished. Not destroyed, not damaged, just gone. Where is the eternal might? Vextar shouted. Checking communications, an officer reported. Sir, the eternal might is not responding. It's completely disappeared from our sensors. Captain Sujin of the human ship. Defiance spoke from her position behind the missing alien vessel. Her ship was still invisible to Council sensors, and she had just used a gravity weapon to relocate the alien dreadnought to the far side of Jupiter. Don't worry, Sujin said over the open channel. Your ship is safe. We just moved it somewhere it can't hurt anyone. Consider it a demonstration. Admiral Vextar's lights flashed between red anger and blue confusion. Impossible! Nothing can move a Council dreadnought against its will. Admiral, Commander Jinwoo said patiently, you seem to be operating under several false assumptions. Allow me to correct them. First, you assumed we were primitive. Second, you assumed we were helpless. Third, you assumed we were alone. As if summoned by his words, more ships appeared throughout the solar system. But these weren't human vessels. They belonged to dozens of different species, all flying alongside the human fleet. Some looked like living coral, others like geometric crystals, and still others defied description entirely. Ambassador Krelnor's insect eyes went wide with recognition. Admiral, those are Veltaran ships, and Nexari vessels. But they've been extinct for centuries. Not extinct, came a new voice, speaking in the clicking language of the Veltarans. Hidden, protected, armed with human technology and very eager for revenge. Admiral Vextar felt his crystal body growing cold. The Veltarans had been one of the first species the Council conquered, over 800 years ago. If they were alive, if they had been building ships all this time, this is impossible, Vextar whispered. Admiral, Commander Jinwoo said, you came to our home, threatened our people, and demanded our surrender. You told us resistance was futile. You were wrong about that too. Vextar's pride finally cracked. You've been planning this. Watching us. Learning our weaknesses. For 23 years, Jinwoo confirmed. We know everything about your technology, your tactics, your supply lines, and your politics. We know which Council members secretly oppose the current regime, which species are ready to rebel, and which of your military commanders are tired of pointless conquest. The alien admiral looked at his tactical display again. His 12 ships were surrounded by a fleet that outnumbered and outgunned them completely. More human ships were still appearing, materializing from hiding places throughout the solar system. Admiral, Tactical Officer Mordek said quietly, recommend immediate withdrawal. We cannot win this engagement. But Admiral Vextar's pride wouldn't let him retreat. He had conquered dozens of worlds for the Council. He had never been defeated. The idea of running from primitives was more than his dignity could bear. All ships, he ordered, target the human flagship. Maximum firepower. Show these mammals what Council weapons can do. The Council fleet opened fire, sending beams of plasma and antimatter racing toward the Indomitable. The weapons were powerful enough to crack continents and boil oceans. The beams hit the human ship and simply stopped. They splashed against an invisible barrier like water hitting a window, then dispersed harmlessly into space. Commander Jinwoo's voice came across the communication channel, still perfectly calm. That was your one free shot, Admiral. Our turn. The human response was swift, precise, and devastating. Weapons that bent space itself reached out from the human fleet. The alien ship's shields collapsed like soap bubbles. Their weapons went dead. Their engines stopped working. 3 Council dreadnoughts were crippled in less than 10 seconds, their hulls intact but their systems completely disabled. The aliens aboard were unharmed but helpless. Floating in dead ships surrounded by enemies they finally understood they could never defeat. Council fleet, Commander Jinwoo announced. You are defeated. Surrender now, and you will be treated according to civilized standards of warfare. Admiral Vextar stared at his dead controls, his crystal body dim with shock and defeat. Around him, his officers waited for orders that wouldn't come. Outside, human ships surrounded them like hunters who had cornered their prey. For the first time in 1,000 years, a council fleet had been utterly defeated by the species they came to conquer. The news reached the Galactic Council's homeworld of Zentara Prime like a lightning bolt. In the massive crystal palace that had stood for 3,000 years, Council Prime Minister Zalthek received Admiral Vextar's transmission with disbelief that slowly turned to rage. Zalthek was ancient, even by Council standards. He was a reptilian being the size of a small building, with scales that had turned silver with age and eyes that had watched civilizations rise and fall. He had ruled the Council for 800 years, and in all that time, no primitive species had ever defeated a Council fleet. "Play the message again," Zalthek ordered, his voice shaking the crystal walls of the chamber. The holographic recording showed Admiral Vextar's broken transmission. "Council command, this is Admiral Vextar. We have severely underestimated the humans. Our fleet has been defeated. Requesting immediate reinforcement. Send everything." The transmission had cut off there and no further contact had been made with the human system. "How many ships did we lose?" Zalthek asked Intelligence Director Veltar. Veltar was a shadowy being that seemed to exist in several dimensions at once. His voice came from everywhere and nowhere. "None destroyed, Prime Minister, but 12 dreadnoughts are missing, presumed captured." "Captured?" Zalthek's roar made crystal formations crack throughout the palace. "A council fleet doesn't get captured by primitives." "The evidence suggests otherwise, Prime Minister." Zalthek paced across the vast chamber, his massive claws leaving scratches in the crystal floor. In 8 centuries of rule, he had overseen the conquest of thousands of worlds. Species far more advanced than humans had knelt before Council might. The idea that these mammals had not only resisted but won was impossible to accept. "Mobilize the First Fleet," Zalthek ordered. "I want Grand Admiral Korvan to take 300 ships and remind these humans why resistance is futile." On Earth, President Namjoon stood in the Global Defense Council chamber, looking at displays showing the captured alien vessels. He was a man in his 60s with silver hair and the patient demeanor of someone who had spent decades in politics. But today he felt the weight of his entire species' future on his shoulders. "Status report," he requested. Defense Minister Yoon-soo stepped forward. She was younger than the president, a former military officer with the sharp efficiency of someone who had commanded troops in combat. "All alien vessels are secure," she reported. "No casualties on either side. The aliens are being held in comfortable detention while we decide what to do with them." "And their response?" Admiral Tejo activated a holographic display showing deep space sensor readings. "Our listening posts detect massive movement in Council space. They're mobilizing what appears to be their main battle fleet." President Namjoon nodded. They had expected this. The humans who had planned Operation Sunrise had known that defeating one Council fleet would only bring a larger one. "How long until they arrive?" 3 weeks, assuming they use standard Council hyperspace technology, Admiral Tejo replied. "But sir, we have bigger concerns." The display changed to show star maps across the galaxy. Red dots marked worlds where the Council maintained control, but many of those dots were flashing. "The news of our victory is spreading," Tejo explained. "Species that have been under Council rule for centuries are beginning to rebel. The Council's image of invincibility has been shattered." In the underwater facility beneath the Pacific, Commander Jinwoo was interrogating the captured alien officers. He sat across from Admiral Vextar in a chamber designed to hold beings of any species comfortably. The alien admiral's crystal body was dim with defeat and confusion. "I don't understand," Vextar said for the 10th time. "Your species showed no signs of advanced technology. Our surveillance detected nothing." "Because we didn't want you to detect anything," Jinwoo explained patiently. "Every signal you intercepted, every ship you observed, every piece of data you collected was carefully designed to show you exactly what we wanted you to see." Engineer Yu Jin entered the chamber carrying a tablet full of technical specifications. She was excited in the way only engineers could be when showing off their work. "Admiral Vextar," she said, "would you like to understand how we hid our ships from your sensors?" The alien's lights flickered with reluctant curiosity. "Your stealth technology?" "We don't use stealth technology," Yujin said with pride. "We use dimensional phasing. Our ships exist partially outside normal space-time. Your sensors can't detect what isn't entirely in your dimension. Vextar's lights went completely dark. That's impossible. The mathematics alone are beyond council science. Yes, Eugen agreed. You've been using the same technology for 1,000 years. We've been improving ours for decades. Captain Mi Young of the research vessel Discovery added her own explanation. Your council achieved technological superiority once, then stopped innovating. You focused on maintaining control instead of advancing knowledge. That was your fatal mistake, but how did you know about us? Vextar asked. How did you prepare? Dr. Bora entered the chamber, carrying files that contained 20 years of intercepted council communications. We've been listening to your transmissions since we first detected your signals. We know your history, your methods, your weaknesses. We know which species you've conquered and which ones are ready to fight back. She opened one of the files and showed Vextar pages of decoded council military protocols. We know your fleet movements, your supply chains, your command structure. We've been studying you longer than you've known we existed. Vextar stared at the files in growing horror. If the humans knew that much about council operations, then they could predict every move the council might make. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, the rebellion was spreading faster than the council could respond. On Veltara Prime, the original homeworld of the crystalline species the council thought they had destroyed, ancient weapons emerged from hidden bunkers. Ships built with human technology launched from secret bases. On Nexus Station, the trading hub where a dozen species were forced to live under council rule, cargo ships suddenly revealed hidden weapons and turned on their council overseers. Even on council worlds themselves, subject populations that had lived in fear for centuries suddenly found courage. The humans had done something everyone thought was impossible. They had defeated the council in open battle. Grand Admiral Corvan received reports of the rebellions as his massive fleet traveled toward Earth. He was a warrior who had led council fleets for 2 centuries, and he had never seen anything like this level of coordinated resistance. How many worlds are in active rebellion? He asked his intelligence officers. 47 confirmed, sir. Possibly as many as 60. Corvan studied the tactical displays showing his fleet of 300 ships. It was the largest military force the council had ever assembled, equipped with their most powerful weapons and most experienced crews. And the humans? Sir, our intelligence on human capabilities has proven unreliable. We recommend extreme caution. Corvan's pride wouldn't allow caution. He had built his reputation on overwhelming force and absolute victory. The idea that a species the council had dismissed as primitive could threaten the galactic order was unacceptable. We will crush these humans and then systematically destroy every rebel world, he declared. The galaxy will remember why the council has ruled for 3,000 years. But as his fleet approached Earth's solar system, deep space sensors detected something that made even the experienced admiral pause. The human system wasn't just defended, it was fortified on a scale that defied belief. Orbital platforms larger than moons. Defensive networks that stretched from Mercury to Pluto. Ships that registered energy signatures beyond anything in council databases. For the first time in his career, Grand Admiral Corvan began to wonder if 300 ships would be enough. On Earth, Admiral Tejo watched the approaching council fleet and felt a mixture of anticipation and sadness. He knew what was coming would change the galaxy forever. The old order was ending, and humanity would help decide what came next. All stations prepare for Phase 2, he ordered. It's time to show the galaxy what freedom looks like. The largest space battle in galactic history was about to begin, and its outcome would determine whether the next 1,000 years would be ruled by fear or hope. Grand Admiral Corvan's fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system like a swarm of angry metal wasps. 300 ships strong, it was the largest military force the Galactic Council had ever assembled. Each vessel bristled with weapons that could crack moons and shields that had never been breached. Corvan himself was a massive being, even by council standards. His armored shell gleamed with the decorations of 100 victories, and his forearms moved with the precision of someone who had commanded fleets for 2 centuries. He stood on the bridge of his flagship Galaxy's Fist, staring at the tactical displays that showed Earth hanging in space like a blue jewel. "Show me their defenses," he ordered. The main screen flickered to life, and Corvan felt his confidence waver for the first time in decades. What he saw was impossible. The entire solar system had been turned into a fortress. Massive orbital platforms hung in space like artificial moons. Defense networks stretched from the inner planets to the outer rim. Energy signatures that registered beyond Council understanding pulsed throughout the system. "Admiral," his tactical officer reported, voice shaking. "I'm reading over 400 human vessels. And, sir, they're all larger than our dreadnoughts." Before Corvan could respond, a calm human voice filled the bridge. It was Fleet Admiral Jae-hyun, speaking from the bridge of the massive human supercarrier Terra's Shield. "Grand Admiral Corvan," Jae-hyun said, "this is Fleet Admiral Jae-hyun of the Earth Defense Force. You have entered sovereign human space with hostile intent. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences." Corvan's pride burned hot at being addressed so casually by what he still thought of as a primitive species. "Human Admiral, you face the full might of the Galactic Council. 300 ships and the most advanced weapons in the galaxy. Surrender now and your deaths will be swift." "Admiral," Jae-hyun replied, and there was something like pity in his voice. "You're making the same mistake your predecessor made. You're seeing what you expect to see, not what's actually there." As if responding to his words, space around the Council fleet suddenly filled with ships. Not just human vessels, but ships from dozens of species the Council thought they had conquered or destroyed. Feltaran crystal ships that moved like living things, Nexari vessels that seemed to be made of captured starlight, species that had been hiding and building and waiting for this moment. Dr. Bora's voice joined the transmission from the orbital station New Sol. "Grand Admiral, before this battle begins, I want you to understand something. Every species in this fleet has a story. The Velterans, who you thought you destroyed 800 years ago. The Nexari, who you scattered across the galaxy. The Kethamori, whose children you took as slaves." She paused, letting the implication sink in. "They're all here, Admiral. And they all remember what the Council did to them." On the flagship Galaxy's Fist, Intelligence Officer Ralvin was frantically analyzing the alien ships surrounding them. What he found made his blood run cold. "Admiral," he reported, "these ships, they're using human technology, but adapted for each species' unique capabilities. It's like each race took human designs and made them better." Corvan stared at the tactical display. His 300 ships were surrounded by over 1,000 vessels, each one more advanced than anything in the Council fleet. "How?" he whispered. Fleet Admiral Jae-hyun answered as if he had heard the question. 23 years ago, we detected your signals and learned about the Galactic Council. We made a choice. We could hide and hope you never found us, or we could prepare to fight. But we didn't prepare alone." The human admiral's image appeared on screens throughout the Council fleet. He was a man in his 50s with gray hair and calm eyes that had seen too much war. "We reached out to the species you thought you had destroyed," Jae-hyun continued. "We shared our technology, our knowledge, our hope. In return, they shared their stories, their wisdom, their desire for freedom. Together, we built something the Council never expected. An alliance based on cooperation, not domination." Grand Admiral Corvan felt something he had never experienced before. Complete despair. But his training and pride wouldn't let him surrender without a fight. "All ships attack formation," he ordered. "Show them the power of the Council." The Council fleet opened fire with every weapon they possessed. Plasma beams that could melt asteroids, antimatter torpedoes that could destroy cities, energy weapons that had conquered 1,000 worlds. The barrage was magnificent and terrible, enough firepower to destroy entire fleets. It was also completely useless. The human ships simply absorbed the attacks, their defensive systems so advanced that Council weapons couldn't even scratch their hulls. Worse, the energy from the Council weapons was somehow redirected and used to power the human fleet's own systems. Commander Sungmin of the stealth destroyer Shadowhawk spoke from his position behind the Council fleet. "Grand Admiral, your weapons are impressive, but they're based on 1,000-year-old technology. Our defensive systems were specifically designed to counter Council weapons." "Impossible," Corvan roared. "Not impossible," came another voice. Captain Hyun-soo of the pursuit vessel. Relentless was speaking from a position above the Council fleet. "Inevitable. You gave us 23 years to study your technology and prepare countermeasures. The human response came not as a devastating attack, but as a demonstration of absolute technological superiority. Gravitic weapons reached out from the human fleet and simply turned off the Council ship's engines. Energy disruptors shut down their weapons. Shield generators went dead. In less than 5 minutes, the largest fleet in Council history had been rendered completely helpless. 300 ships floated dead in space, their crews unharmed but totally defeated. Council Fleet, Fleet Admiral J. Hyun announced, "You are defeated. Surrender, and you will be treated with the dignity that all sentient beings deserve." On the bridge of Galaxy's Fist, Grand Admiral Korvan stared at his dead controls. Around him, his officers waited for orders that wouldn't come. Outside, human ships surrounded them like guardians protecting something precious. "Sir?" his first officer asked quietly. Korvan closed his eyes and felt the weight of 3,000 years of Council dominance crashing down around him. "Signal surrender," he said finally. "It's over." But the battle above Earth was only the beginning. Across the galaxy, the news of the Council's defeat spread like wildfire. On worlds that had been enslaved for centuries, populations rose up with weapons and ships provided by human allies. The rebellion that had started with a few worlds became a galactic revolution. On Zentara Prime, Council Prime Minister Zalthek watched his empire crumble on the status displays. World after world declared independence. Council fleets were surrendering or defecting. The authority that had ruled the galaxy for 3 millennia was collapsing in a matter of weeks. "What are your orders, Prime Minister?" his aide asked. Zalthek looked out at the crystal spires of his palace, built with the labor of 1,000 conquered species. For the first time in 800 years, he felt old and tired. "Send a message to Earth," he said quietly. "Request negotiations." 1 year later, Commander Yan Wu of the diplomatic vessel New Horizon watched the first meeting of the Galactic Freedom Alliance from the observation deck of Unity Station. The massive space station had been built in neutral space, designed by dozens of species working together. Representatives from over 200 worlds filled the Great Assembly Hall. Former Council worlds, newly independent systems and species that were meeting other sentient life for the first time. All of them were here by choice, not by conquest. President Namjoon stood at the podium addressing the assembly. "Today we establish not a new empire but a new hope. The Galactic Freedom Alliance will protect its members, not rule them. We will share knowledge, not hoard it. We will celebrate diversity, not enforce conformity." In the human delegation, Admiral Taeho sat next to Dr. Bora and Captain Dongmin. The three of them had been part of humanity's first contact team, and now they were helping to create a new galactic order. "Do you think it will work?" Dr. Bora asked quietly. Admiral Taeho looked out at the representatives, former enemies sitting beside former slaves, all of them working together to build something better. "It's already working," he replied. On the Unity Station's lower levels, in a small cafe that served food from 50 different worlds, a former council officer named Thane sat across from Lieutenant So Young. Thane's leaves had changed from the regulation gray of council service to the bright green of someone who was truly at peace. "I still don't understand," Thane said, speaking in carefully learned human language. "Your species could have conquered us all. You had the power, the technology, the advantage. Why didn't you?" So Young smiled and looked out at the stars through the cafe's windows. Ships from dozens of species moved peacefully through space, trading, exploring, and building together. "Because we learned something the Council never did," she said. "True strength isn't about forcing others to kneel. It's about helping them stand." The galaxy had learned that Earth was never weak. Humanity's greatest weapon was never their technology or their hidden fleets. It was their choice to use their strength to liberate rather than dominate, to build bridges rather than walls, to offer hope rather than fear.